Thoughts in your mind that you aren't good enough, that you'll never be successful? If so, you're not alone. I've had those thoughts playing in my mind ever since I took the leap to become an entrepreneur. It's a dirty, dark secret that no one likes to talk about, as the glamorization of becoming an entrepreneur is shown in the media. I realized that in order to succeed, I needed help. We all do. So I decided to go all in on myself, spending thousands of hours in the trenches, reading, joining groups, listening to podcasts, hiring coaches to develop a bulletproof morning routine for success. Join me on my journey as together we build our morning fire to ignite our lives as entrepreneurs. My name is Jeff Wickersham, and this is the Morning Fire for Entrepreneurs podcast. Welcome to the show. I'm extremely excited to have Austin Schneider on the podcast today. Austin, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. Looking forward to this. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, thanks for joining. So let's get into state. Obviously, we have talked before. We both are a huge proponent of energy, enthusiasm, excitement. So let's do 3 power breaths in, where we're going to breathe in, raise our hands all the way to the ceiling. Let's go ahead and breathe in.
Let's do it.
And out. Good. Another breath in. And out. Final breath in. And out. All right, now I'm going to count down 3,
Boom.
2, 1. When I hit it, we're going to hit boom and pound our chest in 3, 2, 1, and boom.
Boom.
There you go.
Dang.
Love it. Love
I got
it.
that. I'm not quite as good as you are at that yet. So
I've had a lot of practice in doing it. So there
Clearly.
you go. I appreciate you playing along. So
Of
morning
course.
habits, rituals, routines are what I eat, sleep, and breathe on a daily basis. So Austin, what do you do when you wake up to start you down that path towards success?
Yeah, man. Something that I've been doing for years is making sure no matter what, my mornings are started with movement. So what that looks like for me is going to the gym,
Okay.
going for a run. It could look like even just going for a walk, doing something to get your body in motion. Really, it's common physics. You know, a body in motion tends to stay in motion. You start to get a little momentum, and you want to get that momentum throughout your day, because if you wake up slow, it's a lot harder to get started if you wake up moving, right? If you wake up moving, then your whole day will be moving and grooving, right? So you want to get that momentum early, and then that's what's really going to drive your day.
Yeah, and I'm such a huge fan of exercise, fitness, or just movement. And you stated there, Austin, some days it could be as easy as a walk, right? And I tell people, listen, do some body weight exercises, just get outside, breathe that fresh air. But that's going to invigorate, that's going to start that blood flowing, that wake up process. And it's just so vital to creating that path towards success. And to your point, having a lot of energy, and you can't do anything amazing in life when you have low energy, right? You have low enthusiasm. You need to raise that level. So the easiest way to do that I have found is through movement. So right in line with that for sure. So we've spoken offline, and you've got a very interesting entrepreneurial journey, right? With the company you founded for 2.5 years, but really some amazing growth in 2020 during the pandemic and during what many people see as contraction, right? And fear was everywhere. Can you share a little bit about your story, how you started, and then really what changed in 2020 to allow your company to grow so rapidly?
Yeah, great question. How it started, I guess, even just backtracking, maybe to provide some context and just encouragement for some people. When growing up, I wanted to be a police officer, or I wanted to just really work construction. And I had no ambition to be an entrepreneur. I had no ambition to do something like this. You know, I thought I wanted to go, like, when I was 60 years old, I just want to retire and call it good. Like, that was my mission in life. That's what I grew up learning. I didn't go to college. I didn't do all that stuff because I didn't have the opportunity to. So really, out of high school, I just worked and had an ambition to be a police officer, and had to wait till I could apply. And then really one thing led to another. Lucky for good mentorship. That's why I'm so I love what you're doing, because mentorship and people around you is so important. I discovered my calling, and really my purpose was more so in marketing. And then worked at an NBC affiliate doing ad sales for TV, jumped into real estate. And that's where I started with my marketing career, more so marketing myself as a brand, as a realtor. One thing led to another. People were like, hey, can you help me out? Like, you're really good at this. And then again, product of good mentors, calling out your gifts of what you're good at. And then really kind of decided to try out this whole social media stuff because that's what I was good at. And that's what I really enjoyed most about it. So what started as, and again, Brandtegic wasn't founded. I wasn't like, oh, I have this great business plan, I'm going to start this. It was a product of just trying stuff and trying to hear from the customers and hear what makes sense and hear how I can serve them. It was more of a, how can I just add value to you and solve the problem that you have in social media? So first year and a half or so was a product of just trying stuff. And I didn't know the model. I didn't have a business plan for the most part. It was more so, I'm just going to continue to solve problems. And it kept evolving. And then, remember that was like trying consulting, trying a course, trying XYZ, not knowing what it would turn into. So I would say about a year and a half into a bunch of trying stuff, right? That's when I was finally like green light on, wow, like I have something here. This is going to be really beneficial. I have my products, my services, like everything that I need that I can really press forward. So I would say late 2019, really decided to put the pedal to the metal. And pedal to the metal meant hiring people, taking the risk of hiring people. Like when you don't hire somebody, that's risky. Your first hire is going to always be super risky and feel super daunting, if you would. And then, and then fast forward 2020, we had a pandemic, right? And, that was at first very anxiety driven. It was, oh gosh, like what's going to happen are all the clients going to leave, etc. One, we're in a really good position because we are a social media company, marketing company, and people need that who are doing business still or still need to get their word out. And then two, I think we were able to really help out because we didn't build our business as a transactional relationship, but a relationship driven business, right? Where people relied on us and we were actually providing value. So to backtrack of, okay, I grew this business by solving problems, by providing value to people. I'm just going to do the same thing during this pandemic. How can we provide value to people in a time where they can't get their message out nearly as well as they may have used to, or they can't go to these networking events. So and then to the point of like mindset, just really put pedal to the metal. And we've been really lucky to grow through 2020 and in this year so far. And couldn't be more excited for what's to come. So that's a little bit of the story. That's the 3-minute version.
There you go. Love it. And a couple of things that I pulled out of that was, one, just trying different things as you were going through, after high school, and you had this vision, but you went a different route. And what organically grew out of that was where you're at now, right? And
100%.
Just being open to it, as well as having people around you that saw your strengths and then could point those out to you. Because I always tell folks that sometimes it's difficult to read the label, right? When you're inside the bottle and you're not aware of your strengths, you're not aware of things that might work really, really well because your mind is focused in a different area. And having mentors, having a great group around you is just so vital to success. And the organic of just creating something is just so near and dear to my heart, because I when I left the corporate space, I started a gym. And then what organically grew out of that was high performance coaching, because people could not get themselves into the gym. So it was a pain point, and it just kind of grew out of it. So very in line with that. So putting the pedal to the metal, right? Hiring your first person. What did it take to get through that mental hurdle of saying, okay, I'm going to make the leap. I'm going to hire somebody. I'm going to do this. I'm going to grow my company? Because I'm sure there's a significant mindset shift for you, especially with the fear and everything going on with the pandemic.
Yeah, man, that's a great question too. And I think maybe I'll kind of answer it indirectly, but I think a lot of people who are entrepreneurial or are wanting to start a business, what do? They focus on the goal. They focus on the end thing, but in reality, what we need to be focused on is the next step. It's like, if we're just focused on our goals, that's gonna be intimidating. It's gonna be hard to take it's gonna be, something really big to look at. But if we can just look at the next step to get us potentially there, if we focus on growth rather than goals, then you'll start to hit your goals, right? So it was just one of those things where it's like, okay, this is the next step, in order to get up to the staircase to get to where I wanted to be, or what we wanted to achieve, So I think if we focus on growth and focus on the steps in front of us, then that will lead us to the ultimate goal, rather than just sitting on the goal. I think hopefully that answered indirectly, but I think just the notion of what's the next step versus paralyzed by the goal.
Yes, and so many people do get paralyzed by this big audacious goal that they might have out there in the future. And if you don't chunk it up, if you don't break up those steps and say, okay, yes, that's huge, that's scary, that's big, that's audacious. Let's just figure out what is one step forward that we have to make. It's so vitally important. And we did get a comment there from, I'll show it, Chris Chavez says, there's so much I can relate to about your story, Austin. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for commenting. If you've got any questions you want to ask Austin as we go through this, feel free to chime in. So that was the mindset, right, that got through it. Now you're leading a team, right? And what kind of things do you do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis to motivate your team? You grew from by yourself starting out to now just hiring your 17th employee. Things need to change. Things need to shift. What types of things do you really fall back on or bring up on a daily, weekly basis to your team from a motivation and inspiration perspective?
Yeah, that's another great question. So, and it's been a challenge moving from like this last year and a half, especially the last 6 months, because we've grown, right? Because I'm wired, you're wired as an entrepreneur, right? You want to be doing, you want to be making moves, you want to be hands dirty, like, let's do this thing, But now, since you have like so many people, like, you are now the visionary. So what myself and my coach have been really working on is moving from an entrepreneur to an executive, right? And it's two different mindsets. It's two totally different positions that I've had to try to adapt and learn to. But practically, we have a weekly meeting that we are with our leaders of the team. I have a leadership at Brandtegic, a leadership team, core leaders that I can personally feed into one-on-one. What we do is we have weekly meetings where I try to, motivate them, inspire them to lead as well. I think if we can grow their leadership, then the company will grow its effectiveness, right? It's the law of the lid, John Maxwell. The better the leadership, the more effective that we are. So, and then just really focusing on people, making sure that all the leaders know that we are in a people business. We're not here to just make a bunch of sales or whatever. It's like, we love people, and that's why we're in this business, is to serve. And it's not to be self-fulfilling. It's not about me, it's to serve other people. So that's really what I try to drill into our employees. And then monthly, we'll have a team meeting where we really dive into a core value or something that I want to inspire and lead them with. So.
Love it. Yeah. And that is such a significant shift to make from a visionary, somebody that's in and doing it day in, day out. And so many times our value is tied to that. So when we
100%.
remove ourselves from it, you can have a sense of, boy, I'm not doing enough, or that you lose that sense of value.
Yeah.
And then just to shift to being more of that executive focus and mindset, it's definitely quite significant. So congrats on going through that process and making it and continuing to evolve, because you and I both know it's a constant evolution and journey. And that's one of the amazing things. So let's get to your company specifically. And social media, is just this large elephant in the room that so many folks struggle with, right? What to do, when to do it, where to be. Can you give 3 tips that folks can really dive into from a social media strategy perspective that are low-hanging fruit that wouldn't overwhelm anybody?
Yeah, no, I think social media is like what you said. It's very confusing. There's so much information. Everybody and their mom sells something with has to do with social media to help you, right? So I think the problem that we come across a lot with people is they hire their cousin just out of high school, thinking they can do everything, or they hire one person for their marketing and they become overwhelmed. They become stretched thin because that person's not a graphic designer. They don't have a strategy. They're not a photographer. They're not a videographer. They can't do it all. And if they can, they're going to be really expensive. So if I was going to start, I mean, I think the most important thing, one, is to post, to be consistent. You know, there's a consistency versus a frequency notion. Like if you're consistent with posting and putting out content, then you're going to get better, just like anything. And then secondly would be to be authentic. So know who you are, know what message you want to communicate, and then communicate that message consistently. And then lastly would be to use it versus abuse it, right? Like it's social networking. It's not social scrolling. It's not social get sucked in the vortex for an hour. It's like we have so much opportunity at our fingertips to reach people. Like we got connected through social media. You know, we would have never met if it wasn't for social media. So if I'm using my phone, using social media as a way to connect with people, to engage with people, to reach potential customers, there's 1.5 million different ways to do that on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook, that if you're engaging with people, then you're going to start to build a community, a network, just as you would offline. You can now do it online. And there was actually a study done by this New York professor that said a like on Instagram, a like on social media, giving someone a like is similar to the sensation as a drug, taking a drug. So if we know people are posting to be edified, and we want to build our network, we want to connect with specific people, maybe from a social selling perspective, I'm going to be giving those drug hits left and right. You know, my gosh, that's a huge opportunity to really scale that reach and scale the opportunity to meet people and network with people.
Absolutely. And I love a couple of things there. One, the consistency factor, right? Being consistent is so important. When I started this podcast 2.5 years ago, I was awful. I didn't have my voice, but over 800 episodes later, I feel so much more confident. And the same thing applies to social media and posting. Being consistent, then the audience that you're looking to build is going to know when, hey, Austin's going to show up with a live, or he's going to be posting motivational content, right? If it's from my perspective. And then the use it for producing content or engagement, rather consuming, right? That's a whole another just vital piece that I love you pointed out, because you can, to your point, get sucked down that rabbit hole. And next thing you know, it's an hour later and you were scrolling or doing something that wasn't beneficial to your business if you're an entrepreneur and small business owner, that really you truly need to do. So that's so vitally important. Hey, we got a question coming in from Chris. Chris says, talking about mentoring, what is a good tip in finding a mentor to help you in your journey?
You want me to answer that?
Yeah, go ahead, and I'll answer it as well.
Okay. I think finding people that you aspire to be like, and being shameless to ask them for help, being shameless to meet them for coffee, and meet them at their convenience. And then once you meet them, make sure you have an agenda. And then once you have an agenda, make sure that you're also vulnerable with them, because that's going to be able to really draw that closeness in actually receiving help. But yeah, I think being strategic with who you find is really good. And I think just finding people, identifying people that you want to be like, that you would want in your circle, that could potentially help you out.
Yeah, I love that, Austin. I'll add on to what you said. Those people that you want to be like or aspire to be from a business perspective, making sure they're only 1 or 2 steps ahead of you, not 15, 20 steps ahead, because then the gap isn't that large, and they're going to be able to teach from what they've learned recently in the process.
Yeah,
and inherently, people all want to help other people. The majority of us as human beings are wired in our DNA to help others. So many people will go out of their way to help you when you ask. And it's funny, related to what we were just talking about on social media. Evan Carmichael came on my podcast, but I was liking and interacting with a lot of his posts on Instagram. Well, eventually I sent him a message to get on to the podcast, and he's got nearly 3 million subscribers on YouTube. Here's a guy that's at pretty high level. And he said yes. And I would have never thought that, but you've got to have a little courage in the process. So Chris, hopefully that answers your question. Thank you for commenting, for sure.
Yeah, that was a good question.
Yeah, absolutely. So those were a couple tips related to social media. What's one thing you see what's one mistake people are making time and time again that you just see out there from a social media perspective?
Trying to portray an image mostly, for the most part, like a little bit of fakeness and authenticity, right? I think especially if you're using it from a business perspective, there's a reason that Kim Kardashian is now worth $1 billion, right? Because it's reality TV. There's a reason that reality TV contains the world, people want to, for instance, using Instagram stories and seeing behind the scenes, not just being so buttoned up. And the other thing is, if you are doing it for the business purpose, they're going to meet you anyway. And if there's any inauthenticity, then people are going to sniff that out and they're not going to want to work with you. So I think the number one thing that I see is people trying to just fake it till they make it, whereas just be you. And people will appreciate the journey and your authentic self.
And that vulnerability and knowing that life isn't perfect and that you've gone through some struggles makes you so much more relatable, right? When everything's perfect, people have a very difficult time relating to that because life isn't perfect. Nobody is. People just hide it better than others. So that's such a critical piece to the process. Love it, Austin. So where can people find you, follow you?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram. I've been really trying to triple down and put a bunch of content there at Austin R. Schneider. If you're interested in learning more about Brandtegic, brandtegic.co, connect with me on LinkedIn, add me on Facebook, whatever is most convenient for you guys.
Thank you, Austin, so much for being on the show. Yeah,
of course. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, for listening. Thanks for watching. Have an amazing rest of your day. Rise, fight, love, repeat. Get after it. And I'll talk to you soon.
Come on.
Thank you for listening to the Morning Fire for Entrepreneurs podcast. You now have the knowledge, but without action, knowledge is useless. Choose to act. Choose to step into your greatness and unlock that hero inside of you. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and leave a review so more entrepreneurs can hear this message. If you absolutely love this podcast, which I hope you do, then share it up with someone you know who might see benefit from it. Become that beacon of change, and together we can impact the world.